Hello, we are today with Gerry Stimson, and I will say it again, I'm getting used to talk with very important people in harm reduction, but today we are with the most important person in GFN.
You're too kind.
Gerry Stimson is a British public health social scientist, emeritus professor of the Imperial College of London since 2004. And it's also honorary professor at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine from 2017. He have over 220 scientific publications. You have an academic work and became executive director of the after you left your academic work, you became executive director of the International Harm Reduction Association, IRA, that is called now Harm Reduction International. And you have also developed a program of work in the linked public health and human rights approach to the harm reduction, but also you helped to draft the definition of harm reductions and instigated the biennial report of the global state of harm. So, I bet there is no one more important or the best person to answer this question. What is harm reduction?
Harm reduction is very, very simple. It's just helping people to change their behavior, helping people to use safer products so that they avoid hurting themselves or they avoid ill health or premature death. I mean, I came to harm reduction from my work on HIV/AIDS and people who are injecting drugs. And before HIV/AIDS came along, people said, well, they should just stop injecting or they need to go into treatment or whatever else. But really focused down on the fact that you needed to keep people alive, that you can prevent disease transmission and you can prevent things like overdose if you give people the tools to do that. So harm reduction is done by people, it's not done by experts, but if you give people the education and the tools, then they can make those small changes in their lives, which are so very important. And I came from that history and then did some work, as you mentioned, with the International Harm Reduction Association, which was promoting harm reduction, drugs harm reduction, mainly to international agencies. But to skip forward, when I heard about e-cigarettes and snus and so on, 2009, 2010, I thought, wow, this is very similar to what I've been doing. Smoking, there didn't really seem to be a harm reduction option for smoking, more NRT, but nobody really liked NRT that much. That here, this was the clue to all of this, the key to all of this was the safer product. And it's a classic harm reduction opportunity because, as I said, people do harm reduction. So if you're spending money on cigarettes one day, you can spend money on vapes the next day, you've made that transition and that's going to be a huge benefit. And it's all done without big public health and other people. If the conditions are right, it all happens without really, it doesn't cost governments any money. So what a wonderful solution. But of course, my enthusiasm for that wasn't matched by the enthusiasm in WHO or amongst other public health people who have a very different view of all of this. But it is a classic harm reduction solution, a safer product.
You talk about other people and the who. Why they have this position?
I've thought of this a lot, and there's not a simple answer, because with WHO, a lot of their other work is about harm reduction. In many areas of public health, we do harm reduction. You try to get people to change their diet, or like COVID, harm reduction, hand washing, masks, that simple harm reduction. So it's there in all the work that WHO does, except in tobacco. And again, in public health, and I know a lot of public health, particularly in Europe, and many public health people, they believe in drug policy reform, they believe in drugs harm reduction, but when it comes to tobacco, no, it's a different matter. It's interesting, I think at one level, it's because they don't, well, there's two things. Firstly, I think at one level, they don't really have any role in this. And that's a little frightening for them, because the products are there and people aren't getting on with using them. So there's no job for public health there except to endorse. And because they didn't invent it, they don't control it. If they had invented it, it wouldn't have been successful. But public health people like to be telling people what to do, but they get a bit nervous when people are just getting on and doing something. And, so there's a little bit of fear of lack of control. And I think that means that you get a bit of a rearguard action, which is, okay, it's what I think, the mode that people go into expressing fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD, it's great, FUD. And so all they can really say is, well, we don't know enough about them, or what about the children, or we don't know the long-term effects, or blah, blah, blah. So there's that mentality about, expressing concerns and the maybes, perhaps, and possiblies, rather than the great enthusiasm. And of course, there's another element as well, which is for past 15, 20 years or more, there's been a strong anti-industry sentiment within public health generally, and particularly with regard to the tobacco industry. And for many public health people, they saw this incorrectly, as a tobacco company plot. They were completely wrong in that, but because they'd seen the tobacco industry as the enemy, when these things come along, they think, the enemy is now doing something new, but equally dangerous. I mean, they're completely wrong there, because tobacco companies were late to the game. They
Actually, they were at the other side when they discovered that this will kill their industry. They need to change their. Yes. Actually, it's something good. It was the users changing their ways that the industry said, if I don't change it to something that I don't kill them, I know, I will lose
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because the economic imperative has a public health benefit. I mean, the companies are not doing it for public health. They're doing it because they want to remain in business, and the business is changing. But it also comes back to perception of doctors and public health people, because you've got this industry which has been killing people, and now it's not killing people. But so it's very hard for them to understand that that industries can change, and there's that perception that the industry lied, and it did, but will always lie. But of course, that's a complete misunderstanding of business and economics and profit and all the rest of it. So the very fact that you have tobacco companies who are now selling safer products, you can see how that's very difficult for doctors to take on board.
Yeah, and actually it's not the tobacco industry who are saying that e-cigarettes are a very powerful harm reduction tool. And about that, you were talking about this in some moment, but something that we hear a lot, and you got a lot of experience and you could answer to that. It's like, we hear a lot, there is not enough evidence. If it's vaping, it's a harm reduction tool. What do you think about that statement that we used to hear so much?
Not enough evidence.
Yeah.
There's loads of evidence. Nicotine has been hugely researched. Many doctors think nicotine causes cancer. Bizarre. But nicotine's been well researched. Nicotine itself has been well used. It's on the WHO essential drugs list, nicotine replacement therapy. We know from all the science that's been done, both theoretically, if you're not burning things, if you've got just 3 or 4 constituents in a vape, you've got, in theory, less going into you that's going to hurt you, and all the studies of the constituents and the emissions and the we know short-term health effects as well. So really, it's a no-brainer that the science is irrefutable. And there's a lot of people trying to do science which shows problems. There's a big industry looking for problems, and there's a lot of bad science, paradoxically, because I mean, the small vape companies and the Chinese vape companies didn't have to do the science, but of course the big tobacco companies have to do the science because they've got lawyers. You know, they don't want to be sued by, you know, if their product is wrong. So they're investing a huge amount in good science. So paradoxically, a lot of the good science is being done in a handful of big companies. But the science is irrefutable now. You know, even from the early days, you know, that communication, 95% less risky. Well, probably 98, 99, you know, that's a communication issue. But yeah, just we know these products are so much safer, whether you're talking about e-cigarettes or snus or heated tobacco products. You know, burning tobacco, rolling vegetable matter like a bonfire in your mouth, you know, that's just a dirty nicotine delivery system. So do away with the combustion, you know, there's that cliff, you know, everything down here that, you know, we might argue whether one is a bit more safer than the other. We might say, well, where does e-cigs fit with heated tobacco products, fit with snus and NRT, but everything's right down at that lower level, you know, much, much safer.
Absolutely. And now we are at the GFN. Mm-hmm. And GFN will not exist if it were for you.
Well,
you are super humble. I have the luck of meeting you many times, but that's it. If it were not for Gerry Stimson, we will not be here. This one is the 10th?
It's the 9th. It seems to have gone just like that, but it's the 9th, yes.
It's the 9th, and it's an incredible event. Will you tell us why you make the GFN possible, and what's the difference between GFN and other events like this?
Well, you thank me, but you know, I work with some amazing people. There's a lot of people who make all this possible, and I just sit around and watch it happen these days. But it's because two things. One, it's just in the name. Very early on, we realized this was all about nicotine. It wasn't about smoking or whatever. So just even the name of it.
You're right. Sorry, I said GFN, and maybe the people don't know what GFN means. It's the Global Forum of Nicotine.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So that was an insight that we didn't want a smoking conference or a smoking cessation conference, but it's all about the nicotine. Second, in my background and with my colleague Paddy Costal, we had organised other kinds of events, mainly on illicit drugs, but we always wanted to have what we call a multi-stakeholder event, get everybody in the room. And you know, in the past that might be policemen and drug users, Ministry of Justice, prison officials, health officials, you know, wouldn't meet each other generally. And that's what our vision for this was, that you get everybody in the room. And that's what makes it unusual, but also makes it difficult, because you know, you have here consumers, you've got policy analysts, you've got some public health researchers, advocates, and companies, you know, and they especially are banned from many conferences, but we wanted everybody to talk together. So, you know, when I see, you know, like a vapor maybe arguing with somebody from a tobacco company about their bad products, you know, that's great, because that conversation wouldn't happen elsewhere. It also makes it, though, difficult for some people to come, unfortunately, because they think that the presence of all of these people isn't to their liking.
That is something that also have been placed by the antis. Like, we can't talk with the industry. You can talk with everyone.
You have to talk with everyone.
The thing is that you need to learn and to see what the other side have to say. Maybe you're not in favor of their position, but you need to know what's their position.
You're absolutely correct, because it's the lack of curiosity amongst many people in tobacco control, which is very sad. You know, they have a perception of these products or of companies or of vapors, which is inaccurate. And they, you know, as scientists or as policymakers, or you know, they should really be opening their eyes and their minds a little bit more. Very, very kind of closed off view of the world. So, the Global Forum on Nicotine is good because it's an open door for everybody.
Actually, we will be able this year, that's why we came with a lot of cameras, and that's why we are talking to tow the people, the GFN. But it's impossible to tow through the camera the backstage we could set, or the hallways GFN, that sometimes it's as important as the conference by itself.
Oh, it certainly is. And we've all had what I call death by Zoom. You know, we've had so many Zoom meetings, but you just don't get that personal contact, those insights, those little conversations you have in the hallways or in, you know, over lunch with people. So that's what, I mean, it's so exciting that we're all back here again, and I just walk around and I see people with smiles on their faces, you know.
What do you feel about that, but not as the harm reduction expert and Gerry Stimson, when you go out and you see what you did, when you saw me happy in the GFN, what's on you on this?
Well, I'm glad you're happy. You know, I'm happy, and I want you to be happy. And I want, you know, it's the happy is a funny word, but it's people coming here and feeling relaxed, confident, able to talk to all different sorts of people, knowing they'll come away with new ideas. I mean, every year, new topics. You know, this year there was a lot on like philanthropy and bad science and human rights for the first time. So there's always new things going on. So that's it never gets boring. There's always new things, and there's always progress as well. Because, as you said to me earlier, you know, you came here some years back, and then you went back and helped to organize and develop more contacts, and now you've got a huge network globally, which gives you the energy and the support and the kind of power to do what you want to do. And it's all about that. That's why it's so important to be having these face-to-face meetings.
Actually, I have talked with a lot of people that have attended GFN, and every single people said, GFN changed my life. You changed the life of a lot of people, but not only of that people, the people that it's getting informed that people, that they go out and spread the message.
And you can't change people's life by Zoom.
Yeah, it's kind of a little more hard, but you have done too much. I really appreciate, and I'm so grateful about your work, not only because it's touched me and touched in some way the activism in my country, in Latin America. And you are totally right. We came 3 years ago, a little looking what's going on here, not understanding much, and now we feel proud to say that we are strong in Latin America with people like Francisco from Colombia, Claudio, and they were once here too, and it was the big broker or the big change. You're doing a lot. You did a lot in your professional career, being an important professor and investigator. But you continue, and I really want to say thanks, and I'm very glad that you're happy when you walk in the hallways, and you're so humble. I really appreciate that you give us this time, but also that you give us all the other interviews that we have today are also because of you, Gerry Stimson. So I really want to say thanks in my name and in the boxes of South America.
You're very kind, and thank you.
Just the last question. It's a very little question to end the interview. Is vape smoking?
No, vaping is not smoking.
Thank you to be with us in the screen of Vaping It's Not Smoking campaign. Thanks a lot.